Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Bharat Kalia, a co-founder of Lifelong Online, a leading digital-first consumer durable brand. Bharat is a graduate of SPJN Center of Management and has worked for companies such as Sapient and Bain and Company before starting his own venture. Hi Bharat, welcome to ELI.
Hi, Bria. Thank you for doing this. Very excited to be on your podcast.
I am excited as well. Please tell us about yourself. Please introduce yourself.
So, I am Bharat. Like Priya said, a big chunk of the country, I'm an engineer, MBA by education, worked in the corporate sector for a long time, 5 years at Bain& Company. But eventually, wanted to do something on my own and finally decided to give up my job and jump into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
Lifelong Online, we are a direct-to-customer brand in two large categories, home and kitchen on one side and health and fitness on the other. The journey's been very interesting. The start was very interesting. When we started, we realized that a lot of the India Bharat markets weren't really getting the products that they deserved. A lot of the products were made for the retailer, were made for the distributors, but there was hardly any customer backward product development happening. And it was how the industry was structured. Large brands sold to the distribution chain, and that eventually reached the customer. We saw a great opportunity to do this in a direct to customer way where we could talk to customers directly, understand their needs directly, make products for them. And since I had an analytical background, we data became the centerpiece of all product development, and that's when we started. And creating products that were very customer backward, essentially rated better than competition. On the other hand, we were direct to customer, and direct to customer meant could give India a great price point. We didn't have the fat of distribution, and we very quickly became started making products for India. And before we realized, customers started loving the acha product, acha price point, cliched proposition, and that was the start of the journey. One very important thing we picked on initially, Priya, was that the purchase patterns were changing. Earlier, it used to go through the retailer. You used to go to a shop, the retailer used to tell you, ये अच्छा है, ये बुरा है, इसमें warranty नहीं है, ये broken है. Like he used to take almost a purchase decision for you. Versus now, this was independently done by the young girl or guy in the house, having an Amazon Flipkart account, reading through a lot of reviews. Suddenly, the control that the large incumbent brands had over the retailer was no more existed in this chain. And that's what encouraged us to say, if we could genuinely create a better product and it was a fair marketplace, we could compete. And that was the genesis of Lifelong Online.
Okay. If I understand correctly, your primary channel of distribution is online. Having
Only online.
Okay. Having said that, now tell us, how did you come up with the initial set of products? In fact, there is a lot of engineering involvement as well for designing product before you can sell it to customers. How did you do it in the initial few days?
Fairly simple process, Priya. We started scraping through a lot of data initially. We built tools, obviously, after that, but initially it was very manual scraping through a lot of data, understanding what people were searching for, understanding what they were converting to. And then, kitchen appliances, our mixer grinders and gas stoves were the first few products. And once we scraped the data, we could figure out the top 2 or 3 things in the products that were really not customer backward or broken, which is why they were not the best rated products. We went back to the factories to see could we fix them. We got a lot of pushback initially because a lot of the OEM manufacturers also said कि हमें पता है कैसे बनता है, like you don't come and teach us. But like this was our role, like taking those customer learnings back to the factory to make sure we made the product which we thought was very customer backward. And we did a lot of beta testing. We sent it to a sample, and people loved it. People realized that it didn't have the frills that they were being forced upon by the retailer, but it did the job. And that was the beginning. And our team was also very well set up for this. We were 3 co-founders, Varun and I, were very data backward, very customer backward, was Atul. Our third co-founder had a large manufacturing background that helped product development, also speed up product development initially. And so I think it was just coming together. I've become a big believer in timing and luck through entrepreneurship, and I think it was right time, right place when we started.
Mhm. So, with data and consumer research, you found product market fit. But how did you achieve the scale of? How did you
Yeah.
send your products to the customer initially?
Absolutely. So Priya, once we figured that we had a proposition in place, once we figured that there was a product market fit, the question after that, and this was after year one, was how we could scale quickly and get it to as many customers as possible. My dream was to get it to 25 million households. We are already in between 3 and 4 million households already, and so that was our next phase on if we have a process that works, if we have a product market fit, how can we scale that quickly? That's what we've developed over the last couple of years. We've developed a very, very tight flywheel, a platform where how we develop products, how we manufacture products, how we run our supply chain across the country, very close to the customer, how we very, very sharply target customers. We know who buys from us. 75% of our products are sold outside the top 10 cities. Half of our products are sold in cities where population is under 1 million. And so how we reach those markets, what media they were consuming, and eventually, service is a big part of selling products in this country. We set out a network that on ground covered 14,000 pin codes. And once we had the flywheel in place, it was then a matter of developing as many products as possible. And then post that, we went one category after another. We started with kitchen appliances, did home appliances, went on to healthcare devices, and our latest category is sports. And we continue to churn out products which are rated better than competition, which are fantastic products, which are at a price point that India loves because we are direct to customer, and the flywheel continues to roll.
Okay. What about the finances? Initially, to develop products, you would need financial support, funding, if I may say so. So, how did you manage that?
So we were lucky that way. Not every entrepreneur is. One co-founder Atul seeded the business initially, which gave us the initial capital that we needed to get going. Personally, from my personal perspective, I had a wife at home who was willing to pay the rent and run the house, which was also very important. And I tell her now how critical those things were initially to have that support. But thankfully, we had the seed funding from Atul to get started, and that's how we got rolling. But that said, it was very fundamental to all three of us as co-founders to make sure that we created a very fundamentally strong business. Again, in our business, fundamentally strong meant profitable business because we are in the business of making products and selling to customers. We broke even in the first 11 months, and we've stayed true to that DNA, and we've tried to remain profitable ever since.
Okay. You make it sound very easy, but I'm sure there would be many challenges that you'd have faced along the way. Can you share with us a few of the top challenges that you have faced so far during your journey?
So running a company will come with its challenges, and all entrepreneurs will tell you this. I think a big part of being an entrepreneur is to be prepared, is to not take the failures to heart, because there will be failures. There'll be small failures, there'll be bigger failures, there'll be very big failures. But it's part of the job is to, for lack of a better word, become thick-skinned. And make sure that you take the learning from these failures and move on. And I think that's most important. My learning has been that if you take the smart decisions, if you work super hard, most things can be solved. You obviously need luck to be on your side, but this is what is in your control. If you stop thinking about things that are not in your control and concentrate on working hard and taking the right decisions, I think it's a matter of time that it'll start rolling for you. And we've gone through challenges of our own. And personally, I think people build businesses. Some of the people decisions have also been hard. We've had challenges more recently with COVID. We've had factories shut down. We've had warehouses shut down. But like I said, it's our job to remain agile, our job to make sure that we stay ahead of the problem as much as possible. Just to give you an example, through COVID, because there were regional lockdowns from distributed at 4 places in the country, we're now being distributed warehousing at 8 places in the country. just to make sure that we don't hit lockdowns or face challenges with lockdowns again. So it's part of life to face these challenges as an entrepreneur, but it's important that you don't take these too hard and continue to learn from them.
Okay. Did you ever pivot your business model somewhere in the middle?
So small, not significantly, but small pivots and small improvements continue to happen. And if we are in the middle of one right now. Like I said, our flywheel runs very smoothly and very well now, where we continue to create products. We are now at a stage where we are looking to inorganically acquire products also. To say if there are smaller entrepreneurs, great product designers, students making great products, we can bring them onto our flywheel. While the business at the core still remains the same, but instead of creating products, we're also now looking to acquire products. So we'll continue to make these adjustments to the business. But in our specific case, we haven't had to have a drastic pivot till now.
Okay. Can you give us a sense of what is the current scale of operation? Like how many employees are there? What kind of revenue we make, and more importantly, how many people are getting impacted from our initiative?
Yeah. So we're about 75 people in the core office, but if you include the warehouses and the factories, the number is multifold, which is also important to us as we grow the business. From a scale perspective, like I said, we are reaching 3 million households already. Wanted to get to 25 million households. From a revenue perspective, our peak months are at 40 crores of revenue, which also got covered recently. So that's where we are in terms of scale.
Okay. Tell us about hiring the 75 people you have as employees. How did you find them? How did you go about when recruiting someone to your company?
So, like I said, I am a firm believer people make businesses. You can be as you can have as sharp an idea as you think you have, but eventually implementation in people is what, especially operational heavy businesses like ours. From a hiring perspective, to be very honest with you, I don't think we've been the best. I've trusted references a lot. I am a big believer that if people have worked with people before, or if you get strong references, that's the best interview you can do. On the other side, I trust a lot of ethics that we run with, or culture elements that we run with. I think in a business like ours, people can get up to speed with skills, but if they have the right attitude, we look for people being entrepreneurial. We look for people having the right attitude to learn, to problem solving abilities, working with other people, working as a team, and those are the aspects that we try and judge through our interview process. But again, like I said, references play a big role, and it's very heartening to me that we have extremely low attrition. Some of the people that joined us through the years in the first, second, third year continue to be with us, continue to grow with us, and I think that's personally also important for the three of us.
Tell us about your co-founders. How did you find each other, and how did you convince each other to start a business together?
We are a fantastic team, and the answer is that I've known them all my life. So both my co-founders are family to me, and so like literally family. And so I've known them all my life.
Okay, sure. So now we will discuss about the personal side of being an entrepreneur. To start with, I'd like to understand when did you think of becoming an entrepreneur?
I don't think there was I can't think back to a switch where one day I decided that this was it. Incidentally, this is the third business plan that Varun and I wrote and tried to raise money on. And actually, all three of us, we evaluated between Atul, Varun, and I, we evaluated a sports idea, which was very interesting, but we couldn't find initial success, and we went back to our jobs, doing our jobs. So I would say it was coming a few years, but I think this time we were super convinced. We didn't try and raise money before I quit my job and started doing this. So I can't go back to a time, but probably I always somewhere in my head knew that this is what I'm eventually going to do. I'm going to start a business, and that's where I ended eventually.
Okay. As an entrepreneur, you're expected to stay energetic throughout the journey, and whenever you
Yeah.
are not so energetic, the business will suffer. Having said that, I'd like to understand, how do you stay focused throughout your journey?
So I think the answer is in your question. Staying focused gives you the energy. There are a million things that happen through the day as entrepreneurs. Multiple departments to run. There'll be mini crises, large crises that you will face most days. But staying focused and true to what you know, true to what you're doing, I think gives you the energy. At the end of the day, we know we are creating solid value for our customers, in return creating value for all shareholders in the business. And I think if you keep focus, you will continue to be energetic. One thing very important actually, and I try and find this in my team, and I tell my team this a lot, is energy is also very collective. I think it's important to have a team that feeds off each other in terms of energy. Also, it's not always possible that the founder will continue to feed energy throughout the team. So it's
Mhm.
important that everybody is excited with the mission. Everybody is focused on running in the same direction. And I think you'll realize that these questions suddenly stop appearing, and the team's running with so much energy that suddenly nobody's asking on where you get this energy from. So,
Okay. As an entrepreneur, you have to make decisions every day, and in fact, every hours you would be making decisions. Can you tell us about
yeah.
one tough decision that you have taken in your journey? Also, we would like to understand, how do you take decisions? What is the decision making process that you follow?
I would say 80% logic, 20% gut. I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's what I would follow. It needs to feel right, which is where I say 20% gut, but 80%. I'm a very data backed person, fairly analytical person. Almost everything we do is data backed, and once you reach a certain scale, you also get the luxury of your team members bringing a lot of data to you for most decisions,
Right.
which didn't exist initially. So I think if you know what your goal is, and if you're taking a lot of data back decisions, you're bound to get them right more often than not. Plus, again, the acid test eventually for me is that it should feel right also, and at least on the big decisions, and you have to at some point trust your gut if there's no data.
Okay.
Like you said, there will be hard decisions, there will be easy ones, but that's second nature once you start running a business, and there'll be big ones, there'll be small ones. But one thing I very personally believe in, all three of us believe in, and I think our teams also believe in, is that speed of decision making is extremely critical. The worst thing you can do, I feel, is sit on decisions for a long time. I think speed trumps a lot of things when you're growing so fast, and when you're trying to run so fast. So it's important that you take these decisions quickly. Uh, Failing fast is as important as succeeding, and which is why I tell my teams also, whoever's in the decision making role, to do them data back, but do them quickly and execute quickly.
Okay. Speaking of data, when you analyze a lot of data, you come across a few loopholes, or what we sometimes call growth hacks also.
Yeah.
Uh, can you tell us about one growth hack that you applied during your entrepreneurial journey, which gave you good success?
So I'll give you personal stories actually. A lot of times, data also real emotion gets covered in data. While it's we like to believe we're very data driven. What I ask my team to do is everybody listens into a customer care calls for people in category management role. Not right now through COVID, but before that, I encourage them, and we actually set numbers on how many personal customer visits they were doing. And I think the combination of both is important. If you only do the anecdotal, then a couple of interviews might color your judgment. But if you have a lot of data and you overlay that with listening to customer care calls and visiting customers personally, I think that seemed to be a great set for us to start taking decisions. It also creates a lot of empathy for the customer in people's minds once they actually go physically meet and see customers. When a customer is not a data row but a physical person that you go and meet, it creates a whole different experience for a lot of people, and that's something which is, I think, been very important as part of our DNA, to understand the customer and to do it very personally.
Okay. Another question around data. If you analyze your data, sometimes what happens, some efforts give you compounding returns. So can you
Yeah.
give us one example of any of your activity or the initiatives that you took that gave you compounding returns or compounding effect?
Yeah. The most latest one is a very D2C brand ERP system that we are implementing right now. It's a complete tech that we are implementing, building, which streamlines the flow from how we make a product and through the customer journey and how it goes to the customer. And it takes into account, how we manufacture, where we manufacture, how much we manufacture, how we run a supply chain, where everything gets stored, how we run our marketing. And again, over the years, because we've been very uh, we've tried to keep efficiency at the heart of it, we've built various tools, but now putting them all together, we are seeing fantastic results on the way we are able to run this at scale and at the accuracy with which we are able to run this at scale.
Okay. Uh, can you tell us what are some of the failures that you have gone through as an entrepreneur?
So I'll give you both big and small. The smaller failures are, sometimes as product development people, we get attached to products, and not everything works. In fact, to be honest with you, more things don't work than work in an entrepreneur's life. And I think it's important to have a culture to encourage people to fail fast and not get very attached to the products they make. And I think that once you create an ecosystem where that is encouraged, I think then failure is not frowned upon always. And so that's an important thing to continue to inculcate in the company. And I think we've had multiple product failures through our journey. The other thing that I take personally is there have been occasions where customer experience hasn't been fantastic, especially installation experience through COVID. Customers have been very pained, sometimes with lockdowns, on buying products that they were not able to install. And we are now actually pivoting and putting up a very, very sophisticated video installation system where if we can't visit customer, then it looks like COVID is a phenomenon that will stay for some time. We can actually do product installations over videos and Zoom calls, and that's what we are building out right now. So again, like I said, you continue to learn from your failures, and you will do okay.
Okay. You have done full-time job for good amount of your time, and you have been an entrepreneur for good amount of time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what is the difference between these two lifestyles? One is a full-time job holder's lifestyle, and another is entrepreneur.
So interestingly, I can give you a personal answer for me. For
Sure.
me, I enjoy this far more because the level of impact you can create through entrepreneurship is significantly higher. You can't compare to most jobs, I would say. Uh, the other pro I feel is that entrepreneurship also gives you a lot of flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you personally. I can't remember if I missed a morning physical exercise training routine or not gone for a run when I wanted to after taking up entrepreneurship, because it does give you that flexibility on your time. But the other side is that it's no more a 9 to 5, like you said. It's no more a 9 to 5 life. This is what you eat, breathe, live day in and day out. And so you have to be very sure and very prepared, I feel, before you take the plunge, because this is life. Lines get blurred very quickly after that, especially till till some time where you're large enough to have a very organized structure, very organized team, and then maybe you can start disconnecting again. But till then, this is all consuming. So like, you have to be very sure before you jump in. But I personally, I enjoyed a lot more. I enjoy the flexibility, and I enjoy the ability to create so much more value for customers and everybody else. So,
Okay.
and I had a fantastic job, by the way, which I really enjoyed and I really liked. So I
I'm
had
sure.
a high bar to compete with.
I'm sure. Uh, Coming to the next question, tell us what is the meaning of entrepreneurship to you? How would you define entrepreneurship?
Interesting. I haven't thought of this. I think it's problem solving. It's creating value for your customers. That's the most important thing you do. You while doing that, you create value for your team, you create value for yourself, you create value for your shareholders. But I think if you put your customer at the center of everything, and you try and create value for your customer, that's what I would summarize my experience at least.
Okay. Uh, Coming to my final question. This is one question I ask to all the entrepreneurs who come to the show. Tell us about your learnings as an entrepreneur, and this is one thing that I'm really looking forward to, because many of our listeners, they want to open D2C brand
Yeah,
businesses, and they want to also sell through Amazon or online methods. So tell us, what are the different learnings that you have got, so that we can capture them and maybe apply to our
sure.
businesses.
So some of this I would have actually talked about already, but I will share my learning. That I think running a company, entrepreneurship, quitting your job, it's bound to be an up and down experience. I don't, at least I don't know of a company that's gone up, 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 up always. And you have to be very prepared to face those challenges. You have to be very prepared to fall, get up, run again, fall, get up, run again. There'll be days which will be hard, but you have to have the ability to look at the larger picture, look at the what you are creating, and continue to remain focused on that. I think that becomes extremely important. The other one is that, again, I personally feel that it's hard to succeed half-hearted. It's करके देख लेते हैं कैसा चलता है is usually I don't think will be the right recipe. And so if you should be willing to commit time, energy, mind space to entrepreneurship if you're getting in.
Mhm.
Most importantly, you should be solving something for the customer, and people call it product market fit, people call it the reason why you exist, but you should be convinced that it's creating value at the end of the day for your customer. And if that is happening, a lot of other things will fall into place. I think last one I can add is that it's very different from most jobs. So enjoy the journey. Celebrate your small and big successes, because there'll be a lot of times you will fail. So celebrate your milestones, and I think that continues to give you the energy to grow.
Sure. Anything particular to starting a D2C brand company? Can you share some of the learnings on those aspects?
Right. So product market fit, like I said, have a very strong test on. You will have to have an Indian customer pay for your product at the end of it. Make sure that you are creating products for your right TG, for your customer, not stuff that you like, not stuff that your team like, not stuff that your TG likes. And if your TG is your customer, great. But if it's not, make sure that you get your product market fit right. The other thing, again, this might not hold true for everybody, but in categories like ours, where we are not a consumable or repeat purchase, it's important to make sure you keep your uh, finances, accounts very, very tight and run a tight ship. You want to try and, at least in a D2C sense, try and get to profitability and remain profitable through your journey. It'll give you a lot of flexibility in life to experiment, take risk, and do it at your own terms. And I think this is very specific to Amazon, Flipkart led brands, but I think it's an important aspect. At least it's been an important aspect for us.
Well, I must say it was a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for coming to ELI and sharing your learnings and the different insights that you have generated. Thanks for your time, Bharat, and
Thank
our
you,
best
Priya, for
wishes.
having me. Thank you so much. It was super fun doing this with you. Thank you.